She came back on Thanksgiving morning, bruised, chained, a brand burned into her shoulder. Her husband wept. Her community exhaled. The country called it a miracle. And Sherri Papini stood at the center of all of it, carrying a secret no one else knew, because she had planned every single part of it. Redding, California, November 2016. Keith and Sherri Papini had built a life together. They had 2 small children, Tyler and Violet, young enough that their whole world was still just their parents. And Sherri seemed to be what her neighbors called her, the perfect wife. It's worth remembering that phrase, because by the time this story is over, you'll understand exactly how much work it takes to be perfect, and exactly what it costs when the performance finally breaks. Some stories begin with a crime, others begin with a choice, a lie. And the thing about a lie is that it almost never stays small. It grows, it demands protection, and eventually, the truth arrives all at once. I'm Justin Luther, and these are the Karma Case Files. November 2nd, 2016, Wednesday morning. Sherri Papini laces up her running shoes, steps out of the front door of the house, and goes for a jog. But she doesn't come back. Keith returns from work that evening. The kids are still at daycare. The house is empty. His wife is gone. He retraces her route on foot and finds her phone and earbuds sitting on the side of the road. He calls 911. Within hours, the county sheriff's office was looking for her. Within days, the FBI joined the search. Within a week, Sherri Papini's face was on television screens across the country. A young mother vanished on a morning jog. 2 children waiting at home who don't understand why she hasn't come back. Donations pour in. Investigators work around the clock. For 22 days, no one knew where Sherri was. And then, on Thanksgiving morning, they found her. She was discovered on the side of Interstate 80, 140 miles from her home. Wrist bound, hair cut close to her head, a brand burned into her right shoulder, marks on her skin, burns, a battered nose. The physical evidence of weeks of captivity and cruelty. Sherri told investigators what happened. 2 Hispanic women abducted her at gunpoint during her jog, forced her into an SUV, covered her head, drove her to an unknown location where they chained her to a pole in the closet and kept her there for 3 weeks. She says she never saw their faces clearly. She couldn't tell investigators where she was held. She didn't know how she ended up on the highway. The story is devastating. Law enforcement launches a nationwide manhunt for 2 women. Hundreds of tips flood in from across California. The California Victim Compensation Board pays Sherri more than $30,000 in victim benefits. And for the next 4 years, investigators search for 2 kidnappers who didn't exist. The detectives who worked this case would later say something felt off from the beginning, not because they knew what happened, but because the story never seemed to lead anywhere. Every lead seemed to end where the investigation should have begun. In 2020, 4 years after Sherri came home, investigators submitted clothing she had been wearing when she was found for DNA analysis. The results came back. No unknown women, no strangers, no kidnappers, just Sherri and a man named James Reyes, her ex-boyfriend. Investigators found James Reyes, and he talked. He told them that Sherri had contacted him, that she had planned the whole thing, that she had asked him to help her get away from her husband. He said he picked her up from her neighborhood in Redding on the morning of November 2nd and drove her to his apartment, 600 miles south, where she stayed with him for 3 weeks. While Keith Papini stood at podiums with tears in his eyes begging for information, while volunteers searched the hills outside Redding, while the FBI committed federal resources to finding her, while her children waited. The injuries According to an FBI affidavit, Sherri had asked Reyes to inflict them, to make the story hold. The brand on her shoulder came from a wood-burning craft tool. She designed her own evidence. And in August 2020, when federal agents sat across from her one final time and gave her the chance to tell the truth, she looked them in the eyes and kept lying. March 3rd, 2022, Sherri Papini was arrested by the FBI. That same day, her husband Keith filed for separation. 6 weeks after her arrest, Sherri Papini signed a plea agreement. 1 count of mail fraud, 1 count of making false statements to investigators. In April 2022, she stood in a federal courtroom and said the words out loud, that she made it up, that the 2 women never existed, that the injuries were arranged, that she had spent 22 days in her ex-boyfriend's apartment while people searched for her. In September 2022, Sherri Papini was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, 3 years of supervised release to follow, and she was ordered to pay over $300,000 in restitution to cover the cost of the investigation her lie required. Keith Papini was awarded full custody of Tyler and Violet. Sherri received supervised visitation once a month. She had walked out of her front door one November morning in the life she had built, with the husband she had married and the children she had birthed. And by the time she walked out of that courtroom, almost none of it was waiting for her anymore. Sherri Papini was released from federal prison in August 2023, transferred to a residential re-entry facility in Sacramento County. She left in October, 8 months early. Good behavior. But karma, in this case, had not finished. By March 2024, the U.S. Attorney's Office filed a garnishment against her. She had not paid $1 of the money she owed. With a litigation surcharge added, the debt kept climbing, the way debts do when they get ignored. Keith, meanwhile, gave an interview in 2024. He talked about Tyler and Violet, 11 and 9 at the time. He said they were happy, that his only goal was giving them back the childhood this had cost them. He said he no longer spoke to Sherri. And then, in May 2025, Sherri sat down in front of a camera for the first time since everything unfolded. A 4-part docuseries on investigation discovery, a self-published book, and a brand new story. She said she was actually kidnapped, that James Reyes had abducted her, that Keith had been emotionally abusive, that she had been too afraid to tell the truth, that she would rather go to prison than admit to her husband she had been having an emotional affair. She stood in that courtroom, under oath, and admitted she made it up. And now, after a guilty plea and a federal prison sentence, she was offering a different version. James Reyes declined to comment. Keith Papini had not responded publicly. And her children, Tyler and Violet, are still being raised by the parent who stayed. This is Karma Case File number 11. Sherri Papini did not disappear because something was done to her. She disappeared because she chose to leave. She chose the story. She chose the villain. And here's where this case leaves something behind that most cases don't. Because Sherri Papini is still performing. After the arrest, after the guilty plea, after the prison sentence, after the custody she lost, after everything, she is still rewriting the story, looking for the version where she is the one who was wronged, performing for a new audience. And that may be the truest thing this case tells us. Not about Sherri Papini specifically, but about what happens to a person who has spent so long living inside a performance that they can no longer locate the exit. The perfect wife. She was never perfect. She was just convincing. And now, even when she tells the truth, she may spend the rest of her life trying to prove it. I'm Justin Luther, and these are the Karma Case Files.